When my mother died, I was 6 years old. My father remarried within 2 years to a woman named Diane, who came with a daughter my age named Brittany. At the funeral reception for my mom, my grandmother pulled my father aside and handed him a check for $50,000. For Rachel's education, she said loud enough for everyone to hear. Maria would have wanted her daughter to go to college. My father promised. Diane smiled and nodded. Every year after that, my grandmother added to the fund. Birthday checks, Christmas money, bonds that matured. She'd call me on my birthday and say, "Another 1,000 for college, mija. You're going to do great things." By the time I turned 18, that fund should have had over $120,000 in it, enough for 4 years at a good university, maybe even graduate school. But when I opened my acceptance letter to Stanford and asked my father about accessing the fund, he went pale. "What fund?" he said. And Diane, standing in the doorway of the kitchen in the house my mother's life insurance had paid for, smiled that same smile from the funeral and said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. My name is Rachel Martinez, and this is my story about how my stepmother spent 18 years pretending to save for my college education while secretly funding her own daughter's luxury lifestyle. I don't remember much about my mother. Just fragments. The smell of her perfume. The way she sang in the kitchen. How she'd braid my hair before school. She died in a car accident when I was 6. Sudden and devastating. The kind of loss that fractures a family into before and after. My father, Marcus, fell apart. He'd loved my mother since high school, built a life around her, and when she died, he didn't know how to function. He went to work, came home, stared at the TV, and barely spoke. I'd find him crying in their bedroom, holding her clothes. My grandmother, my mother's mother, Abuela Rosa, basically raised me that first year. Picked me up from school, made dinner, helped with homework, tucked me in. She tried to help my father too, but grief doesn't follow anyone else's timeline. Then he met Diane. She was a nurse at the hospital where he went for physical therapy after hurting his back. Blonde, cheerful, aggressively helpful. She brought casseroles to our house, organized his medication, helped him with insurance paperwork. And somewhere in that process, he started relying on her. "She's good for him," Abuela said carefully when Dad told us he was dating someone. "But don't forget your mother." "I won't," I promised. Diane had a daughter, Brittany, who was 6 months younger than me. Blonde like her mother, outgoing where I was shy, confident in ways I wasn't. When our parents got married, less than 2 years after Mom died, Brittany became my stepsister. "You're going to be best friends," Diane announced at the wedding reception, pushing us together for photos. Like real sisters. We were never best friends. At the reception, Abuela pulled my father aside. I was 8, playing with the other kids, but I saw her hand him an envelope, saw them talking seriously, saw Diane watching from across the room. Later, Abuela told me what she'd done. "I gave your father $50,000, she said, "for your college fund. Your mother would have wanted you to have an education, to have choices. I made him promise to keep it separate, to add to it, to make sure you could go to any school you wanted." "That's a lot of money," I said, not really understanding numbers that big. "It's an investment in your future," she said. "And every year, I'm going to add more. By the time you're 18, you'll have enough for college and maybe graduate school. You're going to do great things, mija." She kept that promise. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time she visited, she'd hand my father a check. "For Rachel's college fund," she'd say clearly, making sure everyone heard. "Make sure it goes in the account." My father would nod. Diane would smile, and I'd hug Abuela and promise to study hard. Growing up in a blended family is complicated in ways people don't talk about. Diane wasn't cruel. She wasn't a fairy tale stepmother. She was just careful, calculated. Every decision tilted slightly in Brittany's direction, but subtly enough that calling it out made you look petty. When we both needed new winter coats, Brittany got the nice one from Nordstrom, and I got the clearance rack version. "They're both warm," Diane said when I noticed. When we both wanted to take piano lessons, there was only budget for one. "Brittany really has a gift for music," Diane explained. "You're more academic anyway." When we both made the honor roll, Brittany got a celebration dinner at her favorite restaurant. I got "good job, honey," and nothing else. My father didn't notice, or didn't want to notice. He'd found stability with Diane, found someone who managed the household and paid the bills and kept things running smoothly. Questioning her would mean disrupting that stability. So I learned not to ask for things. Learned to be grateful for whatever I got. Learned that making waves only made my father uncomfortable and Diane passive-aggressive for weeks. But I always had Abuela. She saw everything. "That woman is stealing your childhood," she'd mutter in Spanish while making me dinner at her house. "Your father is too weak to see it." "It's fine," I'd say. "I don't need piano lessons." "It's not fine. And you deserve more than fine." She kept adding to the college fund. I'd see the checks. $1,000 for my 10th birthday, $2,000 for 8th grade graduation, $5,000 when I won the regional science fair. By my calculations, I kept track in a notebook. The fund should have had at least $120,000 by the time I turned 18. It was my safety net, my escape plan. The proof that someone had invested in my future. High school was where the differences between me and Brittany became impossible to ignore. She was popular, social, joined cheerleading, and student government. I was quiet, studious, focused on grades and SAT scores, and building a college application that would get me out. Brittany got a new car for her 16th birthday. I got a used bike. Brittany got a Sweet 16 party with a DJ and 100 guests. I got dinner at home with Abuela. Brittany went on spring break trips to Cancun with Diane. I stayed home and worked part-time at the library. "It's because her mother can afford it," my father explained once when I asked why the rules were so different. "Diane has her own money." But Diane didn't have her own money. Not really. She'd moved into the house my mother's life insurance paid for. Drove the car my father's salary bought. Lived off the joint account they'd opened after the wedding. The money for Brittany's lifestyle was coming from somewhere. I just didn't know where. Junior year, I started researching colleges. Stanford was my dream. Great engineering program, far from home, a fresh start. But it was expensive. Even with financial aid, I'd need significant funding. "Don't worry about cost," my father said when I mentioned it. "That's what the college fund is for." "How much is in it?" I asked. "Enough," he said vaguely. "Your grandmother has been very generous." I tried to do the math. $50,000 initial investment, plus 17 years of additions, plus interest. It should be well over 6 figures. More than enough for Stanford. That fund was the only reason I could even consider expensive schools. Without it, I'd be limited to state schools or community college. Senior year, applications went out. I applied to Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, and a few safety schools. Worked on essays, collected recommendation letters, stressed over every detail. Brittany applied to colleges too, but with less urgency. "I'll probably just go to state," she said. "It's cheaper and closer to home." December, early acceptances started coming in. I got into Berkeley, then MIT, then in March, the big one, Stanford. I screamed when I saw the acceptance letter, called Abuela immediately. She cried. "Your mother would be so proud," she said. "You did it, mija." I ran downstairs waving the letter. I got in. I got into Stanford. My father hugged me. "That's wonderful, honey." Diane smiled. "Congratulations." Brittany was on the couch, barely looking up from her phone. "Cool. I need to accept by May 1st, I said, and we need to figure out financial aid and access the college fund for the deposit. That's when my father's expression changed. "What fund?" I laughed because I thought he was joking. "The college fund. The one Abuela started when I was 8. The one she's been adding to for 10 years. He looked at Diane. She looked back at him. Something passed between them. Some silent communication I didn't understand. "Dad," I said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Diane said carefully. Stomach dropped. "What misunderstanding?" "There isn't a separate college fund," Diane said. "The money your grandmother gave us went into our general savings. For household expenses, emergencies, both girls' futures." "Both girls," I repeated. "But Abuela specifically said it was for me. For my college." "She gave it to your father," Diane said. "Once it's given, it becomes family money. We've used it responsibly over the years for things both girls needed." I looked at my father. "Dad, you promised Abuela that money was for my college. You promised every time she gave you a check." He couldn't meet my eyes. "It's more complicated than that, Rachel. Running a household is expensive. We had to make choices." "What choices?" My voice was getting louder. "Brittany's new car? Her spring break trips? The Nordstrom shopping sprees?" "That's not fair," Diane said sharply. "Brittany deserves nice things, too." "With money meant for my college fund?" "It was family money," Diane repeated, "and we made family decisions about how to spend it." I felt like the floor was disappearing under me. "How much is left?" Silence. "Dad, how much is left in the account?" "About 8,000, he finally said. 8,000. Out of over $120,000. "Where did it go?" I whispered. He couldn't answer, but I could see it. Brittany's car. The kitchen remodel. The trip to Disney World I wasn't invited on because someone needs to watch the house. The endless parade of new clothes and gadgets and experiences that Brittany got while I wore thrift store clothes and worked part-time jobs. They'd spent my college fund on Brittany's lifestyle for years, while I studied and planned and counted on money that was supposed to be mine. "I'm calling Abuela," I said. "Rachel, don't," my father started, but I was already dialing. Abuela arrived within an hour, fury radiating off her in waves. She marched into our living room like a general going to war. "Where is the money?" she demanded in Spanish, then switched to English for Diane's benefit. "Where is the $127,000 I gave you for Rachel's education?" My father wilted. "Rosa, we had expenses." "Expenses?" She pulled out a folder. "I kept records. Every check, every bond, every deposit. $50,000 in 2010, $2,000 in 2011, $3,000 in 2012. She went through every year, every amount. Total $127,000 specifically designated for Rachel's college fund. Where is it?" "We used it for household needs," Diane said, chin up, defiant. "Household needs," Abuela repeated. "Like the Mercedes in the driveway? Like the kitchen renovation? Like Brittany's spring break in Mexico?" "Those were family decisions," Diane said. "Family decisions to steal from my granddaughter," Abuela shot back. She turned to my father. "Marcus, I gave you that money in trust. I made you promise, at Maria's funeral, to keep it separate for Rachel. You looked me in the eye and promised. My father looked like he might cry. I tried. But life is expensive, and Diane handled the finances. "Don't you dare blame me," Diane snapped. "You agreed to every expense because you convinced me we needed them." My father's voice broke. "You said we'd pay it back, that it was just temporary." "And we did pay some back," Diane said. "There's $8,000 in the account." $8,000, Abuela said coldly, "out of $127,000. Where's the rest?" Diane's jaw tightened. "Spent on the family, on both girls." "Show me," Abuela said. "Show me receipts for what you spent on Rachel. Show me the car you bought her, the trips you took her on, the private lessons, and expensive clothes." Diane couldn't, because there was nothing to show. "You stole from my granddaughter," Abuela said. "You spent 18 years spending money meant for her education on your own daughter. And you convinced my son to betray his own child." The words hung in the air like a verdict. "I'm suing you," Abuela said. "Both of you. For every penny, plus interest, plus damages for educational harm. Rachel got into Stanford. She earned it. And she's going to go, even if I have to take you to court to make it happen." The lawsuit was brutal. It took 6 months and revealed things I wish I'd never known. Diane had opened a joint account when she married my father, titled it Family Savings, and systematically deposited Abuela's checks there. Then spent the money on whatever she wanted, categorizing it all as household expenses. The Mercedes, family transportation, the kitchen remodel, increases home value. Brittany's car, both girls might use it, even though I never did. My father had signed off on everything, convinced himself it was fine, that we'd make it up later, that I'd get scholarships and wouldn't need as much. But Abuela's lawyer was thorough. They traced every dollar. Showed that 87% of expenditures directly benefited Diane or Brittany, while only 13% could be argued as benefiting me. "This isn't mismanagement," the lawyer said in court. "This is deliberate conversion of designated funds for personal benefit." The judge agreed. Ordered my father and Diane to repay the full $127,000 plus interest, which brought it to $143,000. Also awarded Abuela's legal fees. They didn't have that kind of money. They'd spent it. So the judge ordered them to take out a home equity loan against the house my mother's life insurance had paid for, to repay the debt. My father cried when the judgment came down. "I'm so sorry," he said to me outside the courtroom. "I failed you. I failed your mother." "Yes," I said. "You did." Diane refused to apologize. "We did the best we could," she said. "Raising 2 kids is expensive." "You raised 1 kid and stole from the other," I said. "There's a difference." I went to Stanford. Full ride from the repaid college fund, plus scholarships I'd earned, plus a small job on campus. Studied engineering, graduated with honors, got into a top graduate program. Brittany went to community college. Her luxury lifestyle ended the moment the court judgment came through. No more spring breaks, no more shopping sprees, no more new cars. She called me once, freshman year. "This isn't fair," she said. "I didn't know where the money came from." "Then you should have asked," I said. "Should have wondered why you got everything and I got nothing." "We were just kids. I was a kid too," I said. "A kid who worked part-time jobs and wore secondhand clothes while you got $1,000 shopping sprees. You knew. You just didn't care." I hung up. Never spoke to her again. My father tried to rebuild our relationship. Called regularly, sent emails, asked if we could talk. I answered occasionally, kept it brief. Never visited home. "I don't know how to fix this," he said once. "You can't," I told him. You chose Diane over me for 18 years. You don't get to undo that because it finally cost you something. Diane and my father divorced 3 years later. Turns out, when the money in the house and the lifestyle disappeared, there wasn't much left between them. He lives in a small apartment now, works the same job, sees Brittany occasionally. I live in California, work as a structural engineer, make good money. Built a life that's entirely mine. Abuela visits twice a year. We cook together, talk about Mom, avoid discussing my father. I'm proud of you, she says every time. Your mother would be proud too. I know, I say. Thank you for fighting for me. Always, she says. Family protects family. Real family. Last month, I got my Stanford diploma framed. Hung it in my home office next to a photo of my mother. She's young in the picture, smiling, holding me as a baby. She looks happy, hopeful. I did it, Mom, I whispered. Despite everything, I did it. And somewhere, I think she knows. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment about where you're watching from. And if you've ever had someone steal from you while calling it family decisions, you're not alone. Subscribe for more stories. Because sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones who take everything. And sometimes justice means fighting for what was always yours.